Okay, next question comes from German 1184. My question is how to overcome sexual urges, being 100% celibate. And then in your own experiences, how successful are the monks? Okay, first question. How to overcome sexual urges? Obviously, the most difficult um, attachment to overcome for a human being in general. I can accept that there are probably people for whom it's not the most difficult, but I would say for most people it is. Um, and obviously, the simple way to deal with it that we're all aware of is the repression of it, and that's how we would normally deal with such things. Obviously, this doesn't work. Obviously, I think it's readily apparent after some time that this doesn't do much. And this is how we all start. We start by repressing the things which we want to be free from. We just refuse to acknowledge them and refuse to even look at them. And as a result, it's like pushing down on a poisonous gas, and it starts to seep up through the cracks. And it can be really nasty at that point, as we see with many religious figures who end up molesting small children and so on and so on. Um, but if we really look at the Buddha's teaching, and this took me quite a while to do, it's interesting how we can have a theoretical acceptance of a teaching like the Buddha's teaching, and not really see how it relates to our practice, or not be able to incorporate it into our practice. And it took me a long time to realize that that's exactly what the Buddha is talking about. The Buddha taught something very profound that's called dependent origination, which many people are familiar with. Um, but to actually use it in your meditation practice is a whole other thing, and it's something that it's very important to explain and talk about. Dependent origination says that the arising of craving, it comes in a sequence. It doesn't just come up by itself. It comes from certain things. It starts with, briefly speaking, or where we can deal with it, starts with a contact between the eye and the object. So we can start there. If we can catch it there at the contact with the eye where we see something, um, then we can do away with the craving. That's one way to be free of it. The technique that I found most helpful is to go back and forth between the various parts of the attachment. First, there's the contact, and so you can sometimes you'll be able to focus on seeing something that is enjoyable. In this case, seeing a woman, or seeing something that is, or even thinking. It comes up in the mind. Um, the second thing is the feeling that it brings. It brings a pleasurable feeling. And so even before you have some kind of lust or so on, there's the feeling of pleasure that arises. And here we're not repressing this, and we haven't yet come to any idea that this is wrong. But the amazing thing that happens is once you accept the feelings that you accept the pleasure that comes from the sexual urge, or comes from the seeing something which you have a memory of being pleasurable, um, and going through the cycle of addiction again. Once you accept that, it loses all of its power. So when you say to yourself, happy, happy, or pleasure, pleasure, or even lust, lust, which is the third thing. Once there's the feeling, then there's the craving for it, wanting, wanting, or lust, lust, or whatever. Once you go back and forth and accept these things, you're seeing, seeing, or thinking, thinking, and then you have the feeling, and then you have the liking of it, and you go back and forth, and you just watch them for what they are. You'd be amazed at what happens. And it's not as though overnight it's gone, but it totally changes the playing field, and it turns something that was an incredibly profound issue, something that was it makes it impossible for many people to become a monk, becomes something laughable, something that is of no power, that has no power over you. Um, and that's really it, with all of our addictions and all of our aversions as well. They only have power over us because we give them that power. Once we accept them for what they are and give them their audience and say, "What are you?" It turns out there's something very insignificant, or very simple at any rate. They are what they are, and they don't mean anything. They don't have any significance other than the reality of what they are. And as a result, you find the sexual urge disappears. That's, in brief, how you overcome the sexual urge. The other question, how successful are monks? Um, I'm not really supposed to be talking. I wouldn't really be able to comment on how successful monks are. I mean, obviously, if they're unsuccessful, they shouldn't be monks. Um, but it's important to understand that many monks nowadays might not practice meditation in to any great degree. They often become monks for the wrong reason, and also nowadays it's hard to get in touch with a good teacher. So often people have good intentions and become a monk, but because of non-interaction with a qualified teacher, they find themselves struggling for a long time, and they can often find themselves falling away from the monk's life. It's obvious that most people are not going to be able to get all the way to the end of the to reach nibbana in this life. But I would say, as far as being successful, unsuccessful, they're giving it a shot and they're working on it. And just like lay people who go to do meditation courses, they're able to keep it for a certain length of time. I would say it would be very wrong if a monk were unable to be celibate and yet stayed a monk. And I imagine, it's easy to see that sort of thing probably happens. But when they're unsuccessful and then they disrobe, I think this happens quite a bit. And in fact, it's always been the most scary thing. It's like you're out on the battlefield, and you got your gun in your hand, and everybody's dying around you. It's a scary thing because you think, am I going to be next? Um, and that's sort of similar to being a monk. You see people disrobing all around you, and I certainly have seen that. And so it's obviously an incredibly challenging thing. This isn't we aren't pretending that this is something easy that we're doing, but I hope that some of what I've said helps both lay people and monks to 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 find our way, to help us find our way to become free from this incredible attachment. And the upside is, if you want to know that, once you start to deal with these things, it really does bring peace, happiness, and an uplifting sense of freedom, from this incredible burden of having to seek out things which obviously have no meaning and no inherent benefit. Okay, I hope that helps. Thanks for the question.